Hello everyone. On this video we will be looking at place values of decimal numbers, and we will learn how to convert decimal numbers into words and vice versa. Okay, so first we're going to look at our decimal point. Okay, so if you go to the left of your decimal point, that's when you have your whole numbers. You have your ones, like if you have an 8. Then you have your tens. Then you have your hundreds. Then you have your thousands. You have your 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, and it keeps on going. Now, when you go to the right of your decimal point, that's when you get into your decimal numbers. Okay, so if you go to the value 1 decimal place over to the right, that's in the 10th spot with a THS, tenths. If you go 2, that's in the hundredths. If you go 3, that's in the thousandths, then 10,000th, 100,000th, millionth, 10 millionth, 100 millionth, and billionth, 10 billionth, 100 billionth, etc., etc., and so on. It keeps on going. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm going to go to another sheet because I want to line this up. But if you want to press pause and finish writing this out, you can. But I'm going to just move this up for a second. Okay, so let's say, for example, if we want to look at 0.4, or you can have 0.4 or 0.4, it's the same thing. Okay, so you have one space to the right of the decimal. Okay, so this is actually 4/10, which would just be 4/10. Okay, so if you plug in 4 divided by 10 in a calculator, this is what you'll get. Okay, so if you have 0.08, you have 2 spaces to the right of the decimal. So you have your decimal, so 2 spaces is the hundredths. So this is 8 hundredths, which is 8 over 100. So if you plug 8 divided by 100 in the calculator, you get 0.08. So what if you have 0.29? Okay, how would you write that in words, and how would you write that as a fraction? All right. So if you wrote that in words, remember you have 2 place values to the right of the decimal. So to the right you have tenths and hundredths. That will be 29 hundredths. If you want to write out the words 29 or 8 or 4, you could. But this is just how it would read. Okay, so if you have 29 hundredths, really that's just 29 over 100. Okay, so you try these next two on your own. So we have 0.003 and 0.527. So try those two on your own. All right, so I'm assuming you've pressed pause and you've tried this one on your own. So you have 3 spaces to the right of the decimal. So you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this is just 3 thousandths. Or just 3 divided by 1,000. Okay, same thing here. You have 3 spaces to the right of the decimal, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this is 527 thousandths. Which is 527 divided by 1,000. Okay, so all of the values here on the far left, those are your decimal forms. all of the values here on the right, those are your fraction forms. Okay, so that's how you use your place values for decimals. All right. So if you are still writing, feel free to press pause. But now we're going to actually write them out in word form. This was just kind of how they read. Okay, but we're going to actually write them out in word form. All right, so if you are still writing, feel free to press pause, but we're going to go ahead and start on our conversions. Okay, let me move these out the way. Okay, now quick note while we're converting. The word and is only used to represent the decimal point. It's only used to represent the decimal point. When a non-zero number is to the left of the decimal. Okay. Also, use dashes for two-digit numbers. All right, so if you have 57, you write that as 57. Okay? All right, so if you are still writing this, feel free to press pause, but I want to start on a fresh page because when we do our examples, it's going to probably fill up a whole page. So I'm starting with a fresh page. So if you're still writing, press pause, but we're going to go ahead and start on a fresh page. Just wanted to make sure you knew that because it's pretty important when converting. Excuse me. All right, so example. Write the following decimal numbers in words. Okay, so for problem A, we have 0.36. For problem B, we have 0.04. For problem C, you have 22.278. For problem D, you have 12.064. And for problem E, you have 3.0018. Okay, so we're going to write all of those as words. Well, not as words, but in word form. Okay, so for A, 0.36, if you only have a 0 to the left of the decimal point, you can kind of ignore it. Okay, so when you have a non-zero number to the left, then you use the word and. But you have a 0 to the left, so you can kind of ignore it. Okay, so now look at how many spaces. You have your tenths and your hundredths. Okay, so that is going to be 36 Remember your dash when you have a 2-digit number, hundredths. Okay, remember your place values. Okay. So now looking at B, 0.04. Okay, once again, remember, if you have a 0 to the left of the decimal, you can kind of ignore it. Here, you just have 0 and 4, which is basically 4. And you have 2 decimal places, so it's 4 hundredths. Okay, so problem C, you have 22.278. All right, now to the left, you have 22. So really, you just write out 22. But it's a 2-digit number, so you put your dash. You have 22. Your decimal point, remember, that's your and. So you have 22 and. So that's where your and come in. So if you read it as whatever your whole number is and, then you do the right for your decimal. So you have 278, so you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So that's 278 thousandths. 278. 78 is a 2-digit number, so you're going to have that dash. Thousandths. Okay, remember, it's easy to want to make the mistake and say 278 thousandths. That would be incorrect. The only and you're going to use when you're writing it out in word form is wherever the decimal is. You won't add an and anywhere else. So it would be 22 and 278,000. So if you, like I said, if you're tempted to write an and anywhere else, the only and would be the decimal. All right, so for problem D, actually, what I want you to do is I want you to do D and E on your own. So you have 12.064, and for E, 3.0018. All right, so I want you to do D and E on your own. So go ahead and press pause and try to solve those two, or convert those two to word form. Excuse me. All right, so I'm assuming you've pressed pause and you've already worked it out. So let's go ahead and convert them to word form. Okay, so to the left, you have 12. Okay, so now with 12, it's a 2-digit number, but it's only one word, so you're not going to need a dash. Now, if you had 22, you would need a dash, but with 12, it's one word, no dash is needed. You have 12, and that's your decimal point, your and. You have 64, but you have 3 decimal places, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And 64, 2-digit number, 64, so you're going to put a dash in there, thousandths. All right. So now we're going to look at E, and we see we have to the left just 3. So you have 3. Remember, your decimal is your only and, 3, and you have 0018. So basically it's 18, but you have 4 decimal places. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. And 18, 10,000ths. Okay, once again, 18 is a 2-digit number, but it's only one word, so you don't have to worry about dashes for that one. All right, so that's how you convert those to words. Okay, so if you are still writing, feel free to press pause, but we're going to go ahead and convert words to decimals. Okay, so convert words to decimals. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write the whole number part. That's the part to the left of the decimal. And I mean left of the and, because remember the and represents the decimal. Write the whole number part. That's if it exists. Remember, if it's a 0, it's not going to have a whole number part. Before the and. Okay. Now, once you get to the and, remember that's your decimal point. Then follow it with a decimal point. Okay. Remember that if there is no and, the number goes to the right of the decimal. Okay. So no and just means no decimal. That's the easiest way to remember it. No and, no decimal. All right, so second, draw the same number. You don't have to draw, you can just put lines or something to kind of remind you of the spaces. The same number of blank spaces that are indicated. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, for example, if you see tenths, you know that's one blank space. If you see hundredths, it's going to be two blank spaces to the right of the decimal. If you see thousandths, that would be three blank spaces to the right of the decimal. If you see 10 thousandths, that would be four blank spaces. If you see 100 thousandths, that would be five blank spaces, and it goes and goes and goes. So it's etc., and so on. Okay, now the third step is you're going to write the given decimal number so that it ends to the far right of the blank spaces. Given decimal number so that it ends on the far right of the blank spaces. Okay, fill the remaining spaces with 0. Right? So those are the steps that would be involved in converting a decimal number into words and words into decimal numbers rather. All right, so if you are still writing, feel free to press pause, but we're going to go ahead and do a couple of examples. Okay, so let's say, for example, we want to write the following as a decimal number. Write the following as a decimal number. Okay, let's say for problem A, 55 hundredths. Okay, say for problem B, 235 10,000ths. Problem C, 26,245 and 1600ths. Say for problem D, 45,000 and 621 thousandths. And last but not least, problem E, 3,000 and 3 thousandths. All right, so go ahead and write those down, or press pause if you have to finish up. But we're going to go ahead and start on these. Okay, move that up. Okay, so for problem A, okay, there's no and. If you notice for problem A, there's no and, just 55 hundredths. So we're going to look at the hundredths. Okay, so you know for the decimal, if you have your decimal point here, you have tenths and you have hundredths. Okay, so really you just have 55 if you write it as far to the right as you can make it, but that's it. So really that's just 55 hundredths. Okay, let's look at problem B. Okay, so again, if you notice problem B, there's no and, which means all of this will go to the right of the decimal place. Okay, so you're looking at 10 thousandths. So that's 4 decimal places. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. Okay, now if you look at the number, that's 235 10 thousandths. We're going to write that as far to the right. Well, I said 235 is a bad habit. 235 10 thousandths. So we're going to write 235 as far to the right as we can, and all the empty spaces will get a 0. So it's, you can put a 0 to the left of the decimal if you want to. You don't have to. I just do it out of habit. 0.0235. That's your 235 10,000. Okay. Now for C, D, and E, I want you to try those on your own. Okay, so go ahead and press pause and try C, D, and E on your own. Alright, so I'm assuming you have pressed pause and you have worked that one out, so you're all set. So let's verify your answer. Okay, now here's your AND. So we know everything to before the AND is your whole number. So your whole number is going to be 26,245. Okay, so 26,245. That's everything to the left of the AND. Then you have your AND, which is your decimal, 16 hundredths. Okay, so tenths, hundredths. Okay, so we go ahead and fill in our 16 as far to the right as possible, which takes up both of those spaces. So we get 26,245 and 16 hundredths. All right, so that's how that is. You're just basically writing it down in the order that, writing the numbers down in the order that it's coming up, or in the order that it's written. Okay, so for D, you have 45,000, and this is your AND right here, so 45,000 goes to the left of the decimal. Okay, so you have 45,000, and remember that AND is your decimal, 621 thousandths. Okay, so that's thousandths. So you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay, so 21 thousandths, you're going to write 21 as far to the right of those spaces. So you have 21, and everything else gets a 0 put in front of it. Oh, 621, sorry about that. So that should be 621. All right, so that gives us 45,000 and 621 10,000. No, thousandths rather. All right, and we go for E. We have 3,000 and 3 thousandths. Okay, so here's your AND. Everything to the left is your whole number. So 3,000 and 3 thousandths. So you have thousandths. So you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it's just 3,000. So you're going to put 3 to the far right of those empty spaces. So you have 3, and everything else is filled in with a 0. So for E, you have 3,000 and 3 thousandths. Okay, so that's how you convert from words to decimals and decimals to words. All right, so hopefully this made sense, and I'll see you on the next video.